Today is August 24th, 2015. Today is also a very special day. So you can see something was released August 24th, 1995, which was 20 years ago today. And that thing is Windows 95. Oops. Okay, well I screwed that one up. Anyways, Windows 95, for those of you that don't know, was the first release of Microsoft Windows to feature many different things. First of which being the Explorer shell, the taskbar, the start menu, icons on the, well, not quite icons on the desktop, but icons on the desktop that weren't minimized programs. And in fact, I think the computers can do a better looking than I can. What I'm going to do is I am going to get out Satellite Pro. We're going to take a look at Windows 3.1 briefly. And then I'm going to get out the NEC Versa that's sitting over there. And we're going to take a look at Windows 95. I'm going to offer my opinions about Windows 95 and Windows 3.1. Alright, yes. I've got the 6030X out. Because it was more convenient, as it uses the same power supply as the 6230, than grabbing the satellite out. Anyways, when you first booted up your Windows 3.1 and DOS machine, this is what you were usually greeted with, unless you are like me. Let's take a look at it here. And you started Windows. You put something in there to start Windows immediately upon startup. I did not. Your computer really is fully functional at this point. You don't really need Windows, you don't need anything like that, but I have Windows on here, Windows 3.1, and I figured that because this video is about Windows and not MS-DOS, well, we might as well take a look at it. Windows has sound. Now the orange color that you see is just a simple fact of the matter that this display is aged pretty badly. In fact, this whole laptop has not aged really well. It looks a lot better in person. It's more of a yellow as opposed to an orange. But it's just aged. And this is probably about as bright as this thing can get. I don't want to play with that brightness thing because it doesn't exactly work well. This is what the Windows 3.1 desktop looks like. Now, ordinarily you'd have a desktop background that spans the whole screen, but this is only, and there's no, actually I should check that. I don't think there is a stretch option for the background. Doesn't look like it. It's just centering and tiling. That's it. So there you go. There is no taskbar. You can see that when you minimize a window, it shows up as an icon on the desktop. And one of my biggest gripes is that you can move these icons around. So easily, if I can make a situation like this, you could, I don't know, have the file manager open, have, I don't know why you'd have Windows Setup open, but maybe you do. And the Program Information File Editor. And let's say you've got, I don't know, Microsoft Excel open for whatever reason. This is Excel 5.0. Holy crap. Well, I guess I've never used Excel 5.0. Wow. Okay then. And because you can move these icons around, you can move them any which direction you want. So let's put some of them here. Like that. And then if you maximize another window and put it over top of them, well, where did all of your icons, where did all your applications go? It's not immediately obvious that you can Alt-Tab, although I guess users in this time were used to using the keyboard because of, well, MS-DOS. Those kinds of things. But that's how it works, really. See, we got the Program Manager and its companion, the File Manager, right here. Very primitive. This was actually a Windows 3.0 thing. And this existed up until the advent of Windows 95. And in fact, it is still present in Windows 95 if you want to, if you want to use it. So there's a precursory look at Windows 3.1. Personally, I got a lot of use out of Windows 3.0. It's a predecessor, but it's basically the same thing, just without the sound. Because I had it on a laptop that didn't have sound, so I didn't feel like wasting the sound capabilities. But there are a lot of things about it that are just very primitive, and I'm glad that we no longer have this. It's a cooperatively multitasked operating system, so that means if one application hangs, usually the rest of the system will hang along with it. And most everything runs in the base 640 kilobytes of memory. Remember, nobody needs more than 640K of RAM. But it was very easy if you've got a couple of driver stacks or all those kinds of things running in the resident DOS mode RAM 640K to run out of memory, even though you've got a whole bunch of megabytes of stuff. This system happens to have about 16 megabytes of RAM installed in it, and I have, on a couple of occasions, if I'm running a whole bunch of different things, run out of memory. But not run out of 16 megabytes, I'm running out of the base 640K. Because I've got a couple of things running, DOS mode programs and all those kinds of things. So that was annoying. And once we take a look at Windows 95, I think you will agree that it is a major step forward. And apparently I cannot unplug this laptop without breaking the power supply. I would push the power button, however the power button is messed up. You can see that's the power button right there, it's a power switch. There we go. This is completely unrelated, but remember when laptops had no Windows keys? Take a look. There is no Windows key anywhere on this machine. Not even as a function key. It's even weirder to see a trackpad on a laptop without a Windows key. It's weird. Here we go. Laptop with a trackpad and actual Windows keys. This keyboard, however, is not nearly as good as the one that's on the 6030X. However, that's not the point. What you just saw was the carrot of this video. This is the meat and potatoes. My thoughts on Windows 95, and a look at Windows 95 running on actual physical hardware. Now, this is OSR2. This is not the original release of Windows 95. It just happened. It's actually what came on the restore discs that are in here for this laptop. Yes, I've got all the documentation for this laptop. Remember when you used to get this much documentation with a laptop? Anyways, digression. Oh boy. Anyways, now viewer be warned. I am going to be expressing a bunch of obnoxious and potentially jarring opinions in this video, this portion of the video, because I've got a lot of very strong opinions about Microsoft Windows of this time period. And even to now, I've got a lot of strong opinions about it. But I will say this now, Windows 95 is the best, bar none, release of Microsoft Windows ever. It tops Windows 2000. Not by much, because it does not have the stability, the robustness, and just the simplicity of Windows 2000, although they are about the same. The only thing that this beats Windows, the only reason why this beats Windows 2000, Windows 95 does, is because Windows 95, at least the first release of it, Windows 95 does not have that stupid, useless, garbage Internet Explorer shell. Yes, Windows 2000 has an IE shell in it. Whether you want to believe it or not, that's what it's got. It's the same shell as Windows ME, and ME has got an IE shell in it. Windows 98 was the... what would I say? The premiere of that? Yeah, was where that premiered. Oh my god, what a buggy pile of garbage that is. The Windows 2000 shell is better than the Windows 98 one. In fact, the Windows ME Explorer shell is not too bad. Just everything else about ME blows pants. But it's just so stupid. I know exactly why they did it. There is an antitrust lawsuit that took place around the turn of the century because of this. But they did it to gain market share and force Netscape Navigator out of the market. That's exactly why they did it. And anybody that believes otherwise is wrong. Anybody that... Here's how serious I am about this. Anybody that thinks Internet Explorer 4 was good is wrong. Anybody that thinks IE5 was good is wrong. And anybody that thinks IE6 was good is wrong. IE7 was almost there. IE8 took it even a little bit further. It was almost there. And then they ruined it with IE9 and whatever. The rest, as they say, is history. But Windows 95 just has that sleek simplicity of the Windows Explorer. It was the first version with the Windows Explorer, and it was a breath of fresh air compared to the Program Manager and File Manager companion of times past. It's so much easier to use, it's simpler, and it just looks good. It looks good while doing it. So let's fire it up and have a look at Windows 95 now. Now I've got most of the NEC customizations turned on, well, not quite. I've got the desktop background and all that. Let's watch it start up. Now you could still boot to MS-DOS when you install Windows 95, but most people did not. There you can see, oh my god, Windows Internet Explorer, get it away! Eek! IE 3.0, which is what this shipped with, I think it was 3.01, which is what this shipped with, really was not too bad. Music to my ears. Yeah, I believe this shipped with IE3. Maybe it was IE2. Let's take a look. Of course, it's probably running some new version now. Alright, the internet. Can I click on it? Here we go. This might be an earlier version, actually. Let's take a look. About Internet Explorer. Nope. IE 3.02. Now, this browser was not too bad. I'm not going to be able to look at anything because, well, it's not on the internet. But that wasn't too bad. IE 2.0 was, or 3.0 was not too bad. Neither was IE 2. But of course, this was back in a time when the internet was not much more than a couple of GIF images here and there, and text. None of this JavaScript, ads, Flash, none of that stuff. CSS, that didn't even exist at this point. But anyways, you can see we've got icons on the desktop, and they're not minimized programs. We've even got a new place for storing files that are deleted called the recycle bin. This did not exist in prior versions of Windows. You deleted a file, it was gone forever. So you had to be careful. Whoops. This trackpad is not exactly the greatest trackpad. Yeah, trackpads at this time period were not exactly great. They're very sensitive, and there's no way to turn it down. I've got it turned down pretty much all the way, and it's still fairly sensitive. I don't know who makes it, but that's besides the point. I think it's a Logitech product. Take a look here. Mouseware. Well, maybe I'm just a liar. Oh, I don't know why I bother. I am just digressing back and forth here. Touchpad on the PS2. Yeah, Logitech. There we go. I was right. Anyways. So there we have that. See, the desktop, it just looks so simple. You know, compared to Windows. And look at this Explorer. If it'll open. Look at the Explorer here. Look at just how simple that is. It's nice and clean. None of that stupid hyperlink crap on the side. None of that dumb image in the upper corner. None of that. It's just, excuse me, a simple window with simple controls. A simple help program. Now let's see if I can find something that'll help me. No, stop that. Oh, you can look at that. This is a nice help program. Now, some of these are weird in that they'll jump around all around the screen. It was supposed to make, you know, using your computer a little bit easier, but in practice, really, it just made the user dizzy. But it was a nice approach. it was a nice try by Microsoft. You can probably tell that this screen's a little bit whiter, although it is yellow, because it is also worn. Even the laptop looks almost freaking perfect. But under any circumstances, Start menu. This was the first release of Microsoft Windows to have a Start menu. And let me tell you, it works really well, except for the times when you've got a lot of programs installed and it starts wrapping all off the screen. That starts to get really annoying. But you can see that we've got a whole bunch of relics from the past installed on this machine. Windows Messaging, that isn't around anymore. The Microsoft Network, which is what you would know now as MSN. I don't even believe that exists anymore. Got Microsoft Office, what is that, 97? No, that's 95. The icons are the same between 95 and 97, but I believe I've got 95 installed here. Internet Mail, Internet News, that's a newsreader. Prodigy Internet, that used to be a big deal. OAG Flight Disk, I don't know what that is. MindPath FX, Microsoft Reference. Mediamatic Software MPEG, that's a decoding program. McLaffey Virus Scan. Laplink, wow, that's really old. I remember using that at one point to transfer files between a satellite, or actually, sorry, it was a Tecra, I believe. Tecra 740 CDT, I think. I don't know what it was. I think it was a Tecra, but I had a Satellite Pro as well that I was using for the same purpose, and a Dell Latitude XPI that had a bad floppy drive. CompuTrace. I believe that's actually an asset tracking program. Audio Rack 32, Acrobat Reader. I wonder what version of Acrobat that is. Once again, I'm digressing a bit, and I'm going to have to pause this video. 3.0. Because I hear my name being called. I will be back in just a few, thanks to the magic of video editing. Alright, I am back. Another awesome part of Windows 95 is the ability to have long file names. Now, Windows 95 is widely regarded as being the first 32-bit operating system, and that's not quite true. Parts of Windows 95 are still 16-bit. Mainly because it's just recycled from Windows 3.1. But it is mostly 32-bit, including the file access, like the Explorer and all that kind of stuff, is 32-bit in nature, which means that you can have long file names, such as, I don't know, let's create a text file on the document, on the desktop, and let's just call it a bunch of H's. Now, ordinarily, you would not be able to do this. But with Windows 95, you can. Now, if you went out to DOS and were trying to use DOS utilities with these things, it would destroy the long file name because DOS does not support that. It only supports 8.3, is what it's called, which means 8 characters and then the file extension with a dot. That's an interesting empty recycle bin noise. I don't know why I set it to be that, but anyways. There you have it. That's really one of the other benefits of Windows 95. Like I think I was finishing saying, if you move out to DOS and try to use a DOS utility that doesn't support the long file names, it will delete the long file names and it will no longer use a long file name. You can still run MS-DOS with Windows 95. You can see there's an option to restart the computer in MS-DOS mode. And what that does, hopefully, eventually, is it will boot us out. You can see it's loading all kinds of DOS drivers. And you can use MS-DOS just like you normally would. I wonder what version this is. It should be MS-DOS, well, it just says Windows 95. It should be DOS 7, although I think it was a little bit later than that with OSR2. And to get back into Windows, use the good old standby. Doesn't display the splash screen, but it is actually starting. You can probably see it with the disk activity. Alright. That is pretty much all I think I have to say about Windows 95. Like I was saying, I like the start menu, even though it can get a bit cumbersome if you've got a system with a lot of applications. I love the Explorer. It was such a breath of fresh air compared to the Program Manager back when I first started using it. It really is too bad that Microsoft threw everything away that they did with the Windows 95 shell and replaced it with Internet Explorer in Windows 98 just to gain market share and prevent people from using Netscape. There really was no point to doing that. And I guess hindsight's 2020, but that won't stop us. It's human nature to look back and think, wow, I really should not have done that. They really should not have done that. In fact, they can't admit their mistake. They're still doing it to this day. In fact, I believe Windows 10 even still has the IE, or still has IE components in the Explorer shell. I wouldn't doubt it. It's still there in Windows 7. It's still there in Windows Vista. It's still there in Windows 8. It's there. It's just been more subtilized so that people don't realize that, hey, that's what they're doing. But it is what they were doing, and it's annoying. But that's just the way it is. It's nice to look back on these simpler times every once in a while with, Windows 95. I remember running Windows 95 on what was that? That was a Satellite Pro 430 CDT. First system I had with 95 on it. Man, that thing was fast with 95 on it. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty doggone fast. And it was simple. No internet, no problem. Just use Microsoft Word to do illicit things. I think I still even have some of those presentations to this day. Maybe I'll try and dig some of them up. But anyways, just reminiscing on at a much simpler time without the internet. I had dial-up back at that point in time, but I never used it because it was freaking slow. 14.4, yeah, it was not fast at all. I take that back. I had 56K on, I'm trying to remember what system that was. I think that was, again, the Tecra. I had a 56K modem installed, because it actually did not have the system modem installed. It was just a blank plate. So, there you go. Really is simpler times. Let's see what Binder does. Microsoft Binder. Yeah, Office 95. That's what this is. We'll create a new binder. I don't know. Here are a couple of blank ones. Here's a report. Alright, slideshow. I remember this slide being interesting, but I could never find it anywhere. Microsoft Binder basically was what you would use to couple a bunch of various Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, presentations, all kinds of things. It was what you would use to bundle them all together in one easily accessible place for, I don't know, like a meeting or some sort of report, which is what this is for. All kinds of stuff. It was really useful, but I don't think it's present in Windows in Office any longer. Once again, it was a much better time. I want to play some, oh, maybe I won't. That's not the point of this video. That's really it of this video. That's also music to my ears. But that's in Windows 3.1, so